G'day viewers, my name's Graham Stevenson and I'd like to invite you to come on a journey of creativity and learning and adventure through the series Colour in Your Life. There's an artist in every family throughout the world, and lots of times there's an artist deep down inside all of us as well. So grab your kids, your brothers, your sisters, your aunties, uncles and mums and dads and come and see how some of the best artists in Australia do what they do.
Well, hi guys, and welcome back to Colour in Your Life. Well, we're in Sydney at the moment, and we're in the studio of Savva Savva.
Graham.
Great to have you here, bud. Absolute pleasure, absolute pleasure. Now, this man, one of the world's leading watercolour artists, he actually flew out from Cyprus because we couldn't get the team to Cyprus. Big fan of the show. We're a big fan of yours as well, but flew from Cyprus into his home in Sydney. Bit of a jet setter, to say the least. And just said, look, I want to be on the show. I think it's fantastic what you're doing, and we absolutely wanted him to be here as well. But really, really fascinating background. I mean, you've done a lot of travelling. Obviously, you've been back in Cyprus now for quite a few years, but you do come back and forth a lot, Australia and Cyprus. But originally, you started out doing photography, but you've always had this desire, ever since you were a kid, to literally travel, photograph, and paint. And literally been a full-time artist for many years now, and a fantastic watercolour artist as well. I would consider Savva to be one of the better watercolour artists on the planet. But tell me a little bit about that journey from the photography to the art. I mean, it's a fascinating journey for you, isn't it?
It is. As for the show, it did come from Cyprus, but it's a great show. Mm-hmm. It was well worth it. The passion of the team putting the show together, it was wonderful. And it's a great opportunity to be on the show.
Oh,
so
thank
once
you,
again, firstly, thank you. As for the art side of things, I always painted, I always drew, I always mucked around with watercolors and oils.
And everywhere you go in Cyprus, I mean, it's such a historical area for a start, and it's fantastic history. But the arts goes back thousands of years from where you come from, so just about every corner you turn is a painting somewhere.
You take a rock or a stick and throw it anywhere, it will land on something that was built or created 2,500 years ago. It's a magic place.
Fantastic. And Savva's such a prolific artist as well. I mean, this is one of those dedicated human beings that literally travels with a bag and his paints and his artwork in there, and he'll just stop, see a scene, sets everything up and starts to paint. So he's a very dedicated plein air artist. But we're going to today, because unfortunately it's raining in Sydney, but we're going to do a scene of Sydney Harbour.
That's right.
And you're going to take us through the process of what you do. So I'm going to get out of the way and I'm going to get you to do what you do.
No problem.
Fantastic. Pal.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Unfortunately, it's a miserable day today in Sydney, so we're in the studio trying to paint something from a reference photograph. I've chosen one from Sydney Harbour with the ferries, down a circular quay. Normally I paint outdoors 90% of the time, but today, unfortunately, we have to go with the wheel of the weather and paint indoors.
Sorry about that.
So I'm using just a 2B pencil. I've got 300 GSM paper, and usually I'll start with the horizon, and I'm starting just with the harbour bridge here.
Did you find that drawing is an essential part about what you do? I mean, I think that's one of your big passions, isn't it? Drawing.
I love it. I love it, Graham. I absolutely love it. It relaxes me. It takes me away.
So, as far as you're concerned, what's the secrets to a good picture? What really makes a great Savva Savva painting?
I don't know about a Savva Savva painting, but I think a good drawing is the key. It's the skeleton where the painting hangs onto, the paint hangs onto, and if that is good, then you're 90% there. If If on the other hand your drawing is a little bit on the weak side, it would show in the paint.
And was there a reason that you chose watercolour above the other mediums? I mean, it's mostly because you're outdoors, of course, but just loved watercolour.
It's a love-hate relationship, but it's like riding a roller coaster. It's exhilarating, it's amazing, amazing medium, I love it. You're always learning from it. You can never say you reach zenith. There's always something new around the corner. There's days where you paint like it's magic, and there's days, and I'm sure everybody has them, where nothing you do is right. The only thing that you hope is as you paint, those days get less and less and less, and the ones that you enjoy and you have success with it increase.
You gotta practice.
Every day. I think the only thing that I really enjoy doing though is the drawing. I think that it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if you just draw a couple of lines on a piece of paper, or you're just sitting in a cafe and just scribbling on a napkin. It's just, I find it really peaceful, as opposed to watercolor. And it's a funny thing to say, but watercolor keeps you on your toes. Once you start painting it, especially outdoors, you really have to run with it, and sometimes have the patience to wait, and sometimes you really got to go, because you only got a few seconds sometimes before that paint dries, and especially in Cyprus, the sun is very warm there.
Virtually everywhere you go, you've got your kit with you. You'll just stop and get out of the car and start and paint, won't you?
You're just overtaken with the vista in front of you, or a building, or the light, and you literally just start putting your tripods down, and you find that you didn't calculate right, and you're in the middle of traffic, or people coming off a bus stop, and you're blocking everybody, and then you can't do anything about it.
But you said, obviously, being a plein air artist as well, you get huge crowds of people gathering around you a lot too. Yes, particularly when you have an international reputation like yourself, jet setting around the world. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that, does it?
One of the most common questions that I get asked, especially when painting boats, is how do you paint an easy fishing boat? Well, there's a simple little trick with that one. Usually I say to people, can you draw the infinity symbol? And they kind of look at me funny. But I'll show you. We start with the infinity symbol, and just have one line here, and you have the side line. Now, take your rubber, take that off, take that line off, take this line off, and this line off. Just putting this to planks. Suddenly you have the infinity symbol turning into part of a little fishing boat.
There you go. Just a little trick that's fantastic for people to know. Absolutely.
I should put my glasses on, and I tend to see a little bit more detail like this. This is pretty much finished now in terms of a drawing. From here on, I'll start adding paint to it and try and get the atmosphere coming through.
Fantastic. Now we get to the interesting stage. And you've got some pretty snazzy looking brushes there, pal. So what type of brushes do you use?
Graham, I usually use Da Vinci and Escoda brushes, but at the end of the day, whatever brushes I come across, and they do the job.
No, I've never seen covers like that before for brushes.
I love them.
This is what plein air artists use so that their stuff doesn't get damaged when they're trekking all over the countryside.
I love them. They were expensive.
Yeah.
I think they're, the unfortunate thing, I think they're discontinued now.
Yeah.
But I absolutely adore these brushes. The quality of them is just incredible.
And I've never seen covers like that for brushes before. It looks
Great.
fantastic, doesn't it?
Wonderful, wonderful point to them too.
Yeah. There you go, look at that. And then you can just slip the brush back in and protect it while you're tramping all over the countryside. That's fantastic.
I haven't seen them, I think in Europe they're still around.
Yeah.
Here in Australia, I think they've been discontinued in a long time here.
Okay.
Because we're doing the sky here, I'm going to keep it cloudy as it is today. I'll leave some areas where I'm not touching, they'll just become clouds. At this stage, it looks quite messy. I have a good friend in Cyprus. He always worries that when you start seeing this part here, it looks sort of messy. Hard, I guess, to have the painting look pretty at all the times, especially with watercolor, because you really have to mix them. And now I'm going to go over certain areas with water again, just to have some of the soft gradation between the clouds and the blue sky.
You've done a few pictures of Sydney Harbour over the years.
I saw in galleries here, locally in Sydney, and one of the things that they sell a lot is pictures where you can see the Sydney Harbour or the Opera House or the Harbour Bridge, or known landmarks of Sydney.
You actually exhibit in one of the galleries down at the Rocks as well, the Argyle Gallery.
I do,
right?
I do.
Yeah.
Also Wentworth.
Wentworth Gallery, so it's a very prestigious gallery in Sydney.
And I'm going to pretty much start on the water straight away. I'm going to try and keep it as light as possible, but darken it as we're going down. I am actually adding a little bit of red here and going even darker still. It's quite dark.
But it will dry back to a lighter colour,
yeah,
isn't it?
It does, it does.
So tell me a bit more about your travels. I mean, you've travelled extensively, but painting in China and Mongolia, in the middle of nowhere.
Great place.
Yeah.
I arrived in Ulaanbaatar. I didn't realise how dry it is, and yet how cold. And try and paint watercolours in those conditions is incredible, because it dries fast, but you're freezing, so it's very uncomfortable to paint. With one thing that most watercolour artists ask me is, and I noticed at workshops as well, what I do is that they don't use enough water and they go very dry. It's important to actually use the water and let the watercolor paint itself as much as possible, as opposed to trying to control it.
And there's a couple of other pictures that you've done with the Rocks Market. It's obviously down beside the rocks. It's very pretty. There's another one called Circular Quay, which is a ferry down in the harbour as well, with the bridge behind it. There's obviously a number of different angles that you've used down there.
I try and find as many as possible that have a bit of history to them.
I mean, obviously you like water scenes with the old boats. I mean, there's probably a ton of old boats in Cyprus that they pull up onto the
and they're great. Every one of them has got so much character. And the sailors with them, they're equally entertaining, every one of them.
There's one called Cleaning Big Red. And you can see they've actually come up in the high tide of some sort and then propped it up as the tide's gone out, so that they can just work on it when there's a low tide.
Yes.
Scraping the bow as well. It's another one where the men are working on the yacht too.
The village I grew up in, it was nestled between the mountains and the water, and wonderful pine mountains coming all the way nearly to the waterline. It's an incredible place. When you're there in the morning, for example, you can smell all the wild herbs, and I was very fortunate.
So what's your favourite things to paint? I mean, what's the number one on your list?
It changes. It changes all the time, depending on where you are, the mood and the feel that you're in.
Because I love some of the cafe scenes that you do, and I love the colours. You get those red umbrellas. The Limassol Cafe one. It's got the red striped awnings. They're just fantastic. Your yellow umbrellas and the signs out the front. They look great. They just sort of pop out at you.
You find them everywhere. In Cyprus, all around Europe. People just live in cafes over there. And it's just so easy to be inspired and paint. The bridge is really hard to do. I tried it many times with different ways to actually capture it. And I find that the one way you can do it is just with a dry brush. And it's got all these little zigzag sort of lines in it.
So what do you got? What sort of brush you got there?
This is my crazy brush. Totally unruly. You can't. You put just the right amount of pigment, but you get such a fine line with this. It's what's called a dagger brush, and I use it a lot when a lot of the fine lines I've got in the painting the cables that come from the bridge down. Don't want them too exaggerated, not too strong, but just indicate them. And now we'll start working on the ferry and bring that even further forward. It's fairly yellow. Here I have to be a little bit careful, cutting around the windows, marry them together with the rest of it. But I have to work quite fast in order to create that shadow on the top and have it melt within. This is the first wash off the ferry yet, so we'll come back to this once it dries, and we'll add shadows and other little details. The hard thing with watercolor is sometimes you gotta really work fast. Sometimes you gotta take it slow.
Just let the water do its work.
Let the water do its work. There's a railing here, which is a green railing. Think of where my light is coming from, that this little corner here is going to be lit up more than the rest of it. But there's no other way than just go in the deep end and apply it. At this stage I'm hoping that it's dark enough and that it will translate well once it's dry. And now I'm going to go to the bottom section of it and add an even darker pigment to it, at the same time leaving the highlights. And this is all going to be part of the reflections that are going to bring it all together. And now we'll work on the actual pylons. I think that's going to use water here because I already wet them. I'm going to add this and let it sort of creep up on the pylon. The structure I'm painting now is actually the awnings of people waiting for the ferry.
Beautiful. You start to see it coming together now. That must be a very satisfying part, particularly with watercolours, is that they don't take weeks to do and you can see them come together quite quickly.
It's very exciting.
Yeah.
This is the area where you silently make a prayer. You hold your fingers crossed because you want to have a lot of pigment. It's got to be the right consistency. It's got to be dark enough, and the application is got to be even and not too overdone. If it blends in certain areas, don't panic. Just go with it. The only way you can do this is with a really nice pointed squirrel brush. It's the only one that holds enough pigment.
Now also, you do have very successful workshops in Europe and Cyprus, and I think that anybody watching this, I mean, you can see by the quality of Savva's work, he's one of the best in the world as well. And I think that if people are in Greece or Cyprus, that they really should look you up and be part of not just the history, but the fantastic art that goes on over there as well.
I absolutely love it. I get a chance to meet people from all around the world, get invited to places all around the world, to be in Austria for 2 weeks, living in a vineyard. I love that.
And also very popular workshops down here in Australia as well. I mean, Sydney has got some fantastic old architecture.
Okay, now one of the other things that we need to do here is add some people. I won't make them too strong, just perhaps somebody working here is ready to get on the ferry, waiting for it. I'll add a little highlight to him later on. Just some shadows, just to indicate that there's people. I have to wait until that dries in order to give him some sort of clothing. He's got a friend, I'll put him a friend over here. He's wearing one of those red fluoro vests. Funny thing, Graham, is in Cyprus when I was sitting in the humid, close to the coast, especially in nighttime, and you don't have electricity and you don't have any way of drying your paper fast, and people are waiting to get their painting and leave. The only way you can actually dry it is with a blowtorch. And it's quite remarkable actually, if you put your hand close to it, not that close so it can burn, you can actually feel the heat, and if you keep it far enough, it dries just the spot that you need, and you get a great result at the end because it cuts your drying time to fractions of seconds, and you can continue painting. The easel I'm using is actually camera stands. They don't have to be expensive. I can do that now actually while it's drying. If I take it off, it's just literally MDF, a small thin piece of MDF. And the base of the camera, literally you drill 2 holes and 2 screws, and that's it. The beautiful thing about it is quick to set up, it's easy to use, and I can use exactly the same idea for my little table, because you don't have facilities like tables and things where you paint. You can set it up and you have your palette at the right height. You can actually work fast. You got your water and your brushes where you want them, and that's it. Okay, this next section is, I think, the final one. I'm just going to darken the water because it sort of went flat on the first wash, and just to give it a bit more depth. These little dabs and little bits of detail make the painting and give something the viewer to look at, a reason to go closer to it and find and explore it. It's been a great day today, and all we're left to do is to put the signature on.
Wonderful. Well, Savva, all the way from Cyprus.
It was a great journey.
Thank you, bud.
It was a great journey.
Great to have you here with us again. As you can see, fantastic painting. This guy's really good at what he does, and an absolutely entertaining and wonderful human being as well. If you want to go to Europe, or even Cyprus, or even Sydney, and you do move around a lot, I know, so this is the reason being, is because the man's so popular. Go to Savva's website, which is?
Savva.co.
That's a pretty easy one, guys. Get in touch with Savva, fantastic man, you'd really have a great time with him, and he's a wonderful teacher as well. And also, obviously, come and see us at colorinyourlife.com.au, and Facebook. We'll make sure we get a whole bunch of your stuff in there with us as well. And then, as you can see, well, these beautiful pictures, it's an amazing man, really is. And YouTube as well. Come in and subscribe on our YouTube channel. That's getting fantastic as well. You go back to Cyprus in a couple of days, don't you?
I'm flying on Tuesday.
It's fantastic. I mean, this man came all the way from Cyprus to be on
And I will do it again.
That's pretty cool, it really is. But thank you, pal.
Once again, one more.
The pleasure. Absolutely.
Thank you.
And before we go, what do we always say? Remember, make sure you put some colour in your life. And Cyprus. And Savva. See you guys. Bye now.
Bye-bye.